If you've ever thought to yourself, I'd rather just read about this than actually do it, you're not alone. The Enneagram 5 newsletter exists to help you move from knowing to experiencing. Every Saturday, you'll get insights designed to help fives grow without overwhelm. Sign up for free today at enneagram5.com/newsletter or visit the link in the description. Now on to the show. Okay, so I think we need to preface this conversation with we are definitely not mental health experts. So don't take mental health advice from us in any way, shape, or form.
If anybody's been listening to this for any amount of time, we're not experts at anything we talk about. So yeah, this is just add this to the list. It's from our perspective. That's all it is.
Yeah. And if you are struggling with depression in any way, definitely seek some professional help because it's hard to get out of that on your own.
Yeah. And this episode probably won't help you with depression specifically.
No. I've been real down though.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've really struggled with a lot in my life. And on average, it's gotten way better over the last, 6-7 years. But it ebbs and flows. And I am always trying to unpack it and understand what the root cause is. And I feel like I never really get anywhere. There's a bunch of layers and I might discover a piece of it here and there, but it's just always an open question for me.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I feel like I've had similar struggles with just, and I don't know if it's part of, obviously we're talking about it because we're suspecting that it's part of being a 5, right? And maybe listeners will,
or just
relate.
Part of the human condition. And
it is, sure, and part of generational curses at this point.
And we are, we have our own sort of flavor of it as a 5.
Yeah. I don't know, but either way, I feel like it's definitely something that we've both shared from different places or in our life and different perspectives. And most 5s that I've personally known in my life have struggled with depression. So it is an interesting thing. And I don't know if that's part of the condition of being a 5 is carrying the weight of knowing too much about things, because the more you dig into things, depending on what you're digging into, that can trigger depression pretty easily. You just carry the weight of life with you, maybe a little bit more heavily, a little more solemn makes you a little more solemn than others. And one of the things that I'm curious about and curious to kind of dig into is, does that play into what makes us feel all the time on the outside of every group, every relationship, everything about society, kind of on the fringes? It makes us feel like we're on the outside looking in. Does some kind of versions of depression play into that? Because I could see that happening for sure.
And also, does the depression cause nihilism, or does nihilism cause depression?
Yeah, chicken or the egg?
Yeah, or does the low energy cause depression, or does depression cause the low energy? Mm-hmm. Like, these are all the things that I'm trying to work out.
Yeah, and again, we're not health professionals in any way, so I don't know the answer to this. I do know that by treating my anxiety, my depression got better because it's the same meds. Yeah, I mean, I had an episode recently where my meds started wearing off. My body got, what's the word?
Fat?
Oh my God. I was not ready for that.
You set me up for that one, man.
Oh man.
We're laughing a lot for a depression
I was
episode.
just thinking this is going to be the episode we laugh the most in, probably. That's that's why comedians become comedians. They're usually struggling with depression too. There's a word I'm looking for. Your body becomes not resistant, but it builds up a tolerance to different kinds of meds, and so then it'll just start like wearing off, like as if you're taking yourself off of it. And I was on a medicine that apparently is not the favorite to use. It's this medicine called Wellbutrin, which is pretty regular medicine that everybody takes. And I take the generic is bupropion. And so yeah, I started becoming really like chaotic and very manic, like undertones in my life pretty quickly, and my thoughts started racing. I couldn't concentrate on anything, and that overload of like a sensory overload caused me to feel depression. Like it just drops me into this place where I just like shut down, can't do anything, don't want to do anything. And so that definitely affected me that way, but I didn't realize all this was happening because it was so gradual of over, I don't know how long it was, until I started having brain zaps, which is a real medical thing. Have we talked about this? Are you hearing this for the first time also?
I think we talked about it on After Hours.
Oh, okay. And so, yeah, and I had these brain zaps, and it was a really scary thing where it felt like I was like dropping into seizures and stuff while I was trying to fall asleep, and it was like somebody took a taser to my forehead while feeling like 100 times version of when you feel like you're falling asleep. So yeah, it was a weird experience that I'm obviously having a hard time explaining. And so I went to the doctor the next day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you probably need to double your dose or come off of that medicine." And we ended up deciding to double the dose. So we'll see how it goes in a few years. But because it works so well for me otherwise. And so it's kind of one of those things where you have to decide, weigh the options, I guess. I know I had a brief taste of what it was like before I was ever medicated, and I was like, I don't know how I ever functioned in any relationship, in any job, in anything, any interaction. Like, no wonder I imploded my life every few months. Like, it was like a cycle, and I just constantly did it, and it was because I was out of my mind all the time, and I couldn't finish projects, I couldn't do anything productive in my life. And I think all of that also contributed to this kind of other underlying level of depression that grew so much more simply because I felt like I was worthless. Like as a 5, I want to be efficient. I want to be, I want to be, what's the word? I'm having a hard time thinking of words.
Fat?
No, competent is the word I was looking for. Efficient and competent. Apparently the word fat really brings it out. I can just think clearly. Being competent. And so when you feel like you're not competent at life, I mean, it's pretty upsetting for sure, and really brings you down. And I'm sure there's definitely some obviously chemical things going on there. Anxiety and depression are pretty closely linked. And so, yeah, it was crazy. And I had that tiny little, like just a tiny little drop of a taste of that life. And I was like, nope, put me back on the meds. I need to be functional, because I've been way more productive as a human being and successful at relationships and all the things since being on some type of medicine. And so, don't want to go back to that. But I mean, I still experience depression all the time though, like to some degree. It's just dulled, I guess. It's not quite as intense and like makes me want to implode my life. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. So like, what does depression feel like for you?
Apathy.
Yeah.
Like straight up apathy. Yeah. I think that when I wake up in the morning and I can just, if I had to put like a visualization to it, it's kind of like when, if it was a movie, it would be like somebody taking all the saturation down. Like, it's just like it sucks the color out of life for me. Everything feels dull. Colors feel dull. Everything is just blah. And I feel blah, right? I just don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to go to, do I really need this job? Do I really need to do anything? Does anything even matter? And then quickly spirals into nihilism. So, I think I know it usually from the moment I wake up. It's just like, yep, this is what I'm dealing with today. The dark cloud has floated on top of me. And then after so many days or whatever, the thing about me is like, mine is not usually circumstantial. It just comes and goes. And so one day I'll wake up and it's like the sun finally rose again and I have all the color back and all the warmth, and the life is like the life tank has been refilled and I'm okay and everything's fine. So yeah, that's how it is for me. What about you?
Yeah. So what you described is like 99% of every day that I have ever, that I can remember. Yeah. So that's depressing.
Maybe you should talk to somebody.
I mean, it's more like I'll go through phases where I am excited about something. It's usually when I'm learning something new.
Yeah, for sure.
And things feel bright, and I wake up and, I'm at least not hating that I'm awake.
Yeah.
And then once I'm like fully awake, then I can, be excited about the day maybe. It's life, especially at the darkest points, life just feels like a burden, like just existence.
Yeah.
The very act of living feels like a heavy weight.
Yeah.
And I don't feel any hope for the future. I don't feel any gratitude for the present. I just want to go back to sleep. And the weird thing, kind of what you were getting at, is often it's not circumstantial. It almost feels like something outside of me that I have no control over.
Well, that sounds chemical.
Well, the interesting thing is I saw this study come out last summer, and I haven't had a chance to like really dig into it. But basically, it was a pretty bombshell from what I understand, where they found that serotonin actually doesn't really have anything to do with depression. And so then the whole SSRI thing, it's like, well, we think they still work, but we have no idea why they would work, which is really weird.
How much of the brain do we not understand as human beings, right? So, I mean, it could be working in a way that we don't understand, I guess.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've tried medications at different times and they didn't really do anything for me. And, you could argue that I wasn't on them long enough, which is fair,
or on the right one.
And I don't know. There was something intuitively where I felt like I have to stop this. And I can't, it's hard to explain. It's hard to put into words. So I've just, my best when I'm doing things like mindfulness meditation every day and that sort of thing, it sort of stays at bay. It doesn't really come out. But if I'm not in the habit of that, it's like getting up and slaying a dragon every day.
Yeah.
And
it's like pushing a rock uphill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it feels like it's this dance where different things will trigger it. One is, if I feel like I am not in a place where, if I feel like I'm in a place where all I'm doing is just the grind and I'm just, slogging along day after day, and I'm not like learning anything new,
right?
And I'm not having any new experiences. That definitely is a big trigger. But on the flip side of that, like if I just go into learning mode and I'm just, going down YouTube rabbit trails or whatever, and I'm not actually doing anything productive, then I also go into that mode. And finding that balance between the two is difficult. And then, to really keep myself in that balance takes some form of self-discipline, which if I'm depressed, I have no motivation for self-discipline.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of this spiral that happens. This cycle that the good thing is like I'm better about it than I used to be about breaking myself out of the cycle faster, like maybe weeks or months versus years.
Right. Know? Yeah.
But sometimes I just don't know how to get out of it. And so I just have to, the best thing that I've found is some sort of pattern interrupt.
Yeah. Which is why we often want to, in our less mature days just implode your life.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need a pattern interrupt, and so you just put a bomb in the middle of your entire life.
Yeah. So I found more productive pattern interrupts than I used to have.
Same, yeah.
I have experienced depression. In fact, I almost say depression is my natural state. It's just kind of muted. There's not like a huge amount of joy or a huge amount of anger or rage or anything like that. But I would say there are levels for me, and I think there's levels for everybody, to be honest. So I have been depressed, and usually I'm pretty calm for the most part. But there are times in my life when I've been extremely depressed, and I realized that I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to leave the house, I didn't want to do anything. And that's unusual for me because I'm even interested in my usual, things, that my hobbies and things like that. But when I get to a depressed state, then I know I'm not interested in anything, no hobbies, nothing. I'm not even interested in doing much other than maybe just generally just scrolling through the internet, but I don't know, it's hard to really quantify what that depression is, because normally I'm maintaining, I guess to me it's normal, unless it really stops me from doing the things I love. So at times when I get to that state, then I realize, okay, I need to do something else because my state is not conducive for this. I cannot be in this mindset because I won't be able to do anything. And I don't like that very much. But that's, to me, depression as a 5 is something that does happen. I'd say it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it really hits hard.
Yeah, the ways to make you appreciate the present, I think, is so hard. It's just I constantly have to find these it's like trying to get into, it's like getting into an ice bath, which I've heard is its own pattern interrupt, I guess. Resets your physical kind of existence, and I think that it's trying to find that version of that is so hard. And also for us, at least, I don't know if this is like this for everybody, but for me, and I feel like we share this, finding things that are actually intellectually stimulating enough. Because I mean, depression, from what I'm hearing from both of us, is pretty easily tied to boredom. And
that is true. Yeah.
And so, finding something that you can't just be taking in information. You can't just be watching a video. It has to be something that you're interested in, or something that is stimulating enough. Yeah. And so you're actually like expanding intellect. You're actually expanding knowledge, and you're learning something that is interesting to you, and or even maybe wasn't interesting before, but now it is. Like, finding something that a new interest. Oh man, that's just like, it might as well just be like a drug,
And then if you can find someone you can share that interest with and talk about it ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Or even if someone that will sit at dinner with you long enough for you to talk about it incessantly and still want to be your friend, like we did earlier today when I went off the rails on Bitcoin.
Yeah, you did. And it's funny because you apologized to Madison about it, and I was thinking, I've conditioned her to do exactly what she's doing, because I spit. You know how often I talk about Marvel comic books?
I'm sure, yeah.
Like comic movies, or any kind of movie for that matter. Like if I'm geeking out, I've been really geeking out lately on the new Christopher Nolan film that's coming out, Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like losing my mind about the creative process behind what made that movie, because it's insane. And so I've been like, I could go on about it. I think there's like 30 many miles of film that they made that on, like crazy, of IMAX film.
Really?
Yeah, because he always shoots all of his movies on IMAX and cameras and actual film.
Like analog?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But he always had IMAX cameras, which are like the size of like a quarter of this room, and so like they're massive. And so, but he did that with Dunkirk in tiny planes, put IMAX cameras in them. Like, it's crazy how he does everything that he does. But this movie, he said specifically, he said basically some form of like, I went to my VFX guy and said, I want to get down to like the atom level. I want us to see what he saw when he was building this, and like down to like the atomic level. Like, how do we, do that? And he goes through all these things about like the spark of it, the chemical reactions, all these things about, how a bomb goes off. And he's like, and then I want you to do it without any CGI. So there's no CGI in this movie.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
So now you're excited, right? And hopefully everybody else is. I hope you're all excited with me. But yeah, that kind of stuff. I mean, I've conditioned her over and over and over again. She's really, she used to zone out. Like, all the life would just leave her body as I was talking about things, and then she would just like shut down. But I think she's learned to bear with me. But yeah, no, for sure. I think it's got to be part of it. It's got to be. I think that there's constantly finding things. For me lately, being kind of constantly in a creative space and pushing myself in a creative space, like not just letting me do what I'm like good at right now, but like finding the things I'm not good at that I want to be good at in the creative space, whether it's music, producing, all those kinds of things. Pushing myself in my favorite things has actually been the most life-giving thing I've maybe ever done in my life. So I think that's really what's been combating any kind of darker, depressed feelings that I've struggled with, has been just constantly filling my headspace with the things that I love that I'm not good at yet, that I want to be good at, and making myself try to be good at them, and just be like, and also try to tell myself, you could do this. Like, you can do it. Other people did it. You can learn it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. I'm thinking back, when I started the year, it was the most excited I've been in a long time. Like, there were actually a few mornings where I woke up excited to start the day.
Yeah.
And that really has pretty much never happened to me.
Yeah.
And it's because I was learning something new. I had this plan. I was writing every day. I was getting up, and I had formed this routine that actually was working well for me.
Yeah.
And then, for the first few months of the year, it was going really well. And then there was a pattern interrupting that. And it got me out of the routine, and then things just sort of imploded, and in a series of events over the next few months,
it's always our downfall.
Really depressing, you know, and
it's always our downfall. It's like getting out of that habit. We find something that works and then we break it. For me, it's all of those things. Like for me, it's tactile things. Reading greatly improves my mental health, and reading anything, just reading, but reading a book, like not reading on a screen, no blue light, just straight up physical book. I've been working my way through some classic novels, and then at night I'm reading classic novels. In the morning I read something that like sparks something in me creatively or passion wise. So whether it's like, you could call it self-help or whatever. Right now I'm reading Rick Rubin's The Creative Way, and that's been amazing for morning reading because it kind of gets me pumped for the day, even though I'm like going to work at a job that's not necessarily creative. Like, it kind of it puts me in that space in a weird way where I'm thinking creatively about things, and it starts me on a good note. And then by the end of the day, I'm trying to go to sleep, and the best thing I can do is I turn all the lights off and I have a reading light, and I lay in bed in the dark and read because it helps me go to sleep. But also it's just me in this book. All I'm thinking about is the words, and it's like a weird therapeutic thing that I found that helps really, really well. And so, and then going to the gym. That's the most helpful thing I have ever done, and I don't do it like I should.
Yep. I know there's a physical aspect to this.
Yeah, 100% there is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And when I am eating well, when I'm getting daily activity, it is better.
Do you think that's a common thing? I mean, based on our community and the responses that we get in comments on our other podcast and things like that, I feel like it's kind of a common thing for people to not want to do, for fives to not want to do physical things, definitely, but for exercise specifically. I feel like it's like, I don't know if we just have an aversion to it because of our like
not wanting to be in our bodies.
Yeah, just wanting to be the floating head. And so I think that, that's got to be a commonality. If you're an exercise like freak that's a 5, please introduce yourself. I would love to know how that works for you.
I know we at least have a couple, so
Yeah.
we should talk to them about that.
We should talk to them about that. Maybe one episode can be exercise. We're going to basically work all of our listeners and ourselves into being functional human beings by the end of this entire show. But the finale of our entire series finale for this whole show will just be like, we have nothing left to tell you. Go and live your life. It secretly was educational for all of us, including me and you. But yeah, I don't know it's gotta be, there's a physical aspect to it. I mean, and not just a physical aspect. You can't go and just run a little. You can't go and just, I have to push myself beyond what I thought I could do. And when I do that, I experience such an intense physical high. Endorphins actually release in my body and I feel good for days. I mean, it's like taking shrooms. Like I don't know if for anybody who's been listening a while, I talk about that in one of the first couple episodes of season 1. Like taking shrooms is the wildest experience you can have, not because of the effects it has on you immediately. It's the effects it has on you after the fact. For 2 or 3 days, I was the most euphoric happiness and peace I've ever felt in my life. When I really I did shrooms a little heavier than, the first time I ever did it, I did way too much. And so I had like a crazy experience. And then ever since then, I've more microdosed and you don't feel the effects of it as much, but it's still there. I mean, I can totally see why people take it in a pill form now. And like in some states, it's legal to take as like a therapeutic medicine because it 100% helps. And so that I would, if I could just do that as my antidepressant for anxiety, I'd do that for sure. But because it's a way better feeling. But a runner's high is very similar.
Yeah, I have not experienced that.
I didn't either my entire life until just this last 6 or 8 months. But the problem is the more you run, the harder it is to get to that high because the more endurance you build. So the last time I got the runner's high, I did, it was a full 45-minute or an hour run. And I did 3 miles or 4 miles or something. And I was running up 6 hills. And I mean, it was a hard class. I didn't know when I hit play on the Fitness Plus class, I didn't know it was going to be that hard. And I was pushing myself through it. And, but when I was challenging myself to try not to, get let my base pace be a light jog. Don't go back to the rest can be a walk, but try not to walk as much as possible. And what I found was in those harder points, I mean, I'm pouring sweat. I'm, feeling the fatigue for sure in my knees and ankles and stuff like that. But then there's this certain point where all of it just goes away. You don't feel any of the pain anymore. Your body feels amazing. And all of a sudden it's just it's like somebody, you remember the movie Limitless?
Yeah.
It's like you took that pill, when all the colors are brighter.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And that's, I understand why people get addicted to exercise because of that feeling. That one feeling was amazing. But then I come down off of that and then I think about how much work it takes to get back up there. And do I have that energy?
Why can't there just be a pill?
Yeah, right. I'll gladly take that clear pill. Learn all the things in 30 minutes and feel like I'm, feel euphoric. Yeah, for sure. That'd be great. But yeah, that's kind of where I struggle is just I know the things that will make me feel better and having motivation. I don't know. Maybe this episode should secretly be called the motivation episode because the motivation behind making you feel better is where the most friction in my life happens. It's that internal thing for me. It's I just feel like I'm sinking in quicksand or mud, sometimes when I want to try to move to do the things. It's yeah, but I also could just sit here.
Yeah, it's also hard to not get on another anarchist rant on how it just feels like society is set up to make distract us, get us into
sure,
turn us into consumers and turn us into cogs in the machine.
Slaves to the machine,
where we feel like we don't really have a true purpose and we're just doing the same thing over and over just to be able to survive.
Right. The only way we have value is if we're working and being productive.
Yeah. And I love my job, but I realized very recently, I really need a vacation. And we had planned to do one last month, and Amy got injured again. And so we kind of pushed it off till the end of the summer. And one of the things that I told her a couple weeks ago was I did not remember to consider how desperately I needed a vacation. And I don't think I can make it till the end of the summer. Yeah. And so I decided I'm taking off so starting next week, I'm going to be off for like basically 12 days straight and there's some stuff I need to actually do to get caught up on things like cleaning my office and going to the doctor and like,
all those things will make you feel better too, probably.
I know that's the thing. There's a bunch of stuff that I need to do.
Like check off the list
to get myself back into a better state and get my environment back into a better state. Mm-hmm. But I also, we're planning to do things with the kids and go on like a day trip, to Atlanta or something and just get out of another pattern interrupt, right? Because it's been probably 9 months since I've had a real vacation, and I need one. I need to get out, and I need to stop working, and I need to stop feeling guilty when I'm not working or when I'm not, when I don't have the energy to play with my kids and things like that. It's
God, I can't even imagine having kids. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, we've talked about this probably multiple times at this point. Like, I actually am in a place at this point in my life where like, I think I kind of want kids. And it's funny now that I want kids, I talked to Madison about it and she's like, I don't know if I want kids now. Like you want them. And I'm like, I don't know if I was her failsafe. Like I was her excuse. And then like, I talk about like, kids making me feel, things in general that make me want to be a parent. But then the moment that we start talking at all about actually having kids, both of us are like, maybe not. Because just the thought of how tired we are at the end of the day, and like we can't function on one income. And so like, how would we even do that? And so it's like, you start getting into the mechanics of it, but just the energy, I can't even imagine being in your seat and being like, at least you have a job where you can work from home. Like that's beneficial, but maybe it's beneficial. I don't know if it's actually beneficial.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've gone back and forth on this. There are definitely pros and cons.
Yeah.
I think that, one of the things that's hard is there is an expectation that daddy is home. And so you have to set those boundaries.
Right.
And it's really hard for a little kid to understand, daddy's home, but he's working. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be with me. It means that he has to work, even though he's home and he could just come out here and be with me. And there are some times when maybe daddy takes off work early, but that can't be all the time. And so it's just like, it's really hard to explain that to a kid. And at the same time, it's like, dude, I would rather be spending time with you than working. I mean, I think that's a reasonable thing to question and have a hard time understanding. Yeah. And I don't know how to explain it to you. And I don't want like, and then how do you explain it without passing on this sort of, you're just a cog in the machine, and like I have to work because we have to have money, because we have to pay for rent and we have to pay for food, and it's just like I don't really want to pass that on to him, but like it's just
I have to earn this fake paper that buys us things. I think that's definitely, I can't even imagine. He's questioning the right things, I guess. But if we go back, if as a listener you go back and you listen to season 1, we've had jokes about this. I'm setting you up for this joke. Here it comes. Every season I have a new job, and jobs. As while we're on the topic of jobs, this can be like a little tab in this topic. I think that jobs are so closely tied to all of it as well, because the moment you get bored at a job, the moment it starts sucking the life out of you, it's not even just boredom, but beyond that. And that's something that I had experience with in my last job. And I think that, I worked for that. I worked in the alcohol industry, which was the first season. I worked as a buyer. And then the second season I worked as a distributor or sales rep. Third season I was what was that?
You were in sales for tech
sales. Yeah. And then I moved between this. We've gone too long having seasons 3 and 4 because I actually have had Since that job now I'm on my third job, which sounds terrible when you say it out loud, but like, so I was laid off from the one job, the first tech job, because they were doing mass layoffs, which you so graciously helped navigate for me. And then I went to this next job that was kind of the same thing, because I had already had it in my mind I was going to do something else, because this job, that kind of job, was just soul sucking for me. And I think even our listeners, when we do the other episode, people are like, I don't know how you do that job. And I didn't know how either. But with that second job, right out of the gate, I was like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I knew deep in my soul, like, this is not what I want to do. So I have to get out of this as fast as possible. But what else do I do? I explored some different things. And then I pretty quickly realized I didn't want to do anything that was like customer facing. I didn't want to have to deal with people as much. And if I wanted to do more project-based jobs. And so I tried to get into media and like that side. And it's just, it's hard to do that right now for sure. And so I really want to do something more creative. Couldn't do that. So then I landed on, I kind of got talked into the job that I'm in now, which is, I don't know if you call this full circle or I'm just backtracking at this point. I don't even know, but like, I'm back as in a sales rep for an alcohol distributor, but it's a different one. And it's actually the job that I went for the first time and didn't get. And so, but this time the guy who it was in that position, who was a good friend of mine, talked me into that role. And so I did it and got the job. And I figured, it's fine. It's something that I can do for now, and we'll see how it goes. But honestly, what's great about it is that, I'm all on premise, which means I'm all bars and restaurants, and which means I'm only going to people's accounts that are friends of mine.
Yeah. So basically you get to walk around downtown all day and drink with your friends.
I'm outside, I'm walking around, and all the accounts are like on this part of town, on the street that I live on. So there's an entire day, which was today, that I got to I just walked around, literally just walked around. I could ride a bike to all of my accounts. And so I think that there was aspects of this job that I didn't realize. The last job I had was, the system was terrible. I was the only rep in town. So I was covering like 150-mile radius driving.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I had a mandate to open 2 or 3 new accounts a week. So like, there was such a push, and I didn't realize that at the time, how much that was affecting me. And so, that's not what pushes me. I don't care about numbers. I don't care about reaching a certain like quota or whatever. The job I have now is not commission based. So that's a big difference.
Wow.
And so I'm just maintaining accounts. I'm maintaining relationships with the people I have relationships with in real life. And so, yeah, I basically am just talking to and or texting people I know all day. And I'm done fairly early, because most of the second half of my day is just doing like people texting me the orders, and I type the orders in.
Administrative type stuff.
All administrative. So I get to be home. I get to be putting my creative cap on way earlier in the day. Mm-hmm. And I still have the mental capacity. The last job that I had was the same job that I had remotely, but they made me go into an office. And I thought, oh, well, maybe that'll make it different, like being around people. Maybe that's what was so bad about this job, because you were talking about, you don't know if it makes it better to be remote. I went into the office and it made it 100 times worse. But a lot of that too is like bad culture, right? Like the bosses were incompetent, and that, as a 5, working for incompetent people I had literally zero respect for them. So it was very, very hard.
Yeah. That's incredibly demoralizing.
And the fact that like, I knew that like I wasn't like the best salesperson, but I know I'm a good manager. So I could do their job better than they could. And I could do their job better than I could do this job. And even though I'm like lower on the totem pole, I could manage people. Managing people is easy for me. And so I think that that's something that was such a struggle. And so I got into, for anybody who's part of our community on our online, like our other show, After Hours, there's a few episodes there where I was dark. Yeah. I was down in the trenches, and I did not know a way out, because I was like, if I don't get out of this job, then like I have no will to live. Like, I need to get out of it. And it was soul sucking. And so, at least for now, this job is fairly, I'm learning about things that I care about again. The alcohol industry is really interesting. There's always new things to try, and and there's a lot of education behind that that's really up to me. And I have a lot of books on my shelf that are about alcohol that I kind of was like, well, I don't know why I have these anymore. And now I'm glad I have them. And so there's the educational side, there's the relational side, but with people that I don't mind going to see, but also like, so I get to see people during a day, but I'm also in control of that. Like, I'm not having to be in a space for 8 hours with people I don't want to be around.
You're making
doing
your
a thing
own
I don't want to
schedule.
do. Exactly. So it's kind of like working for yourself and having an amazing boss. I've known the guy that I work for many, many years, even from before as a buyer. And he's the reason I wanted to work at this job, because he's just a good manager. He's a really good person. He's really easy to work with. And everybody that I know a few people who work at this company, and they're all like, this guy's amazing to work with. Like and I was like, good, because he seems like he is. And so, getting into it, I mean, he's been amazing, and he's not a micromanager. He's the opposite, really. He's like, let you make your own mistakes. We'll figure it out afterwards. And so it's been a really, really good experience so far. I'm only a month in, so we'll talk again in a few months. But I think that I can already tell this is going to be a much better experience, because it's leaving room. I now know how to separate creative versus the other thing. Like, I've always had the other thing, the day job, whatever the other thing is, take up way too much of my day, because it's the only thing that I could do. And then becomes like a vicious cycle of that turns into a spiral, really, of am I even worth anything, because the only value I have is this, and it takes up all of my time, because that's I got to make this amount of money, and I have to work this hard for this tiny little amount of money. I have to work a whole bunch. And so, the job thing, I think, plays such a huge part in just overall trying not to get it too wrapped up in our identity. I think it's just really hard, and can very easily become a negative thing. But for me now, the job that I have now, I can kind of separate myself from. So I know my identity lies within the thing that I do after I get off work or before I go to work, and not the thing that I'm doing at work. But also the thing I'm doing during the day is not that bad. So that's been really helpful for me. But jobs play a huge part into it, because
it's such a huge part of life.
It is.
We spend,
sadly,
so much of our time and energy working, and and at the same time, like if we had nothing to do all day, like we also would hate that, because I'm learning more and more just how much, and I kind of hate this realization because of the way that we grew up. But like I'm realizing how much I need a sense of purpose.
Oh yeah. But see, here's the thing. If you had nothing to do all day, you would find work in the things you really want to do or learn to do. You would find your purpose in what you're good at and what you can contribute to whatever community or society you're in, right?
Theoretically. Yeah.
Or you become the hermit surrounded by books.
That's the thing. Like, there's a danger there.
Yeah.
Of
you'd be Bilbo Baggins.
I could. Yeah. I could see it going either way.
Sure. Yeah.
It also probably would depend, like, am I in this state because I'm unemployed, or am I in this state because I'm like a millionaire and I don't need to work and I just have resources to go pursue my passions? Because
sure,
I could see a world where, I have enough wealth where I don't have to have a job and I can just like learn different skills that I'm interested in, and experiment and build things. And, I have a software engineering background, but I would love to get into like electrical engineering and mechanical engineering, and I would love to get into woodworking. And I'm into gardening, but I really want to dig into like permaculture and have enough land to be able to like create a food forest and just there's all this kind of stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
But I am trapped in this like 10 by 12 room all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks sometimes. Like,
yeah,
like I love the team that I work with and the work that I do, and I get paid well, and I'm definitely doing something worthwhile, but it's all virtual.
Yeah.
And it's hard to kind of build that energy.
Yeah.
When you're just sitting in front of a desk staring at a screen all day long and getting on Zoom calls, and like, it's exhausting.
I don't experience chronic depression, but I have experienced a few depressive episodes throughout my life. And the best way I can describe it is like being in space on a spaceship and doing a spacewalk outside of the ship. And suddenly I let go and start floating away, and I can't grab onto anything. I'm floating into space and I can't control it. And it feels like I'm floating. I'm going to float into space forever. And this is kind of what it feels like to be a 5 sometimes when we go into these withdrawing spaces. And last year I had a depressive episode, and I started to imagine myself in that scenario, floating away in space. And suddenly I kind of had this idea that, oh, I have a tether. I have a tether attached to my spacesuit, and I don't know how long the tether is. I'm going to float out, but it will end at some point, and I will be able to reattach myself and reel myself back into the ship to safety. And that metaphor has kind of helped me know that when I go to those places, it can often feel out of control, like it's never going to end. But that tether metaphor kind of gives me that security that even though I feel really awful, I know it's going to end at some point.
Well, that was the hard thing about, I think it depends on the work, and it depends on the people you work with, for sure. You know, I think that the first tech job I had, it was all remote, but that was people that I would have liked to work in person with.
Yes.
You know?
Same.
Like,
the team I have now, I definitely wish we could work in person.
We would hop in Zoom calls just to talk and hang out and like do things together without, you know, and we all wanted to. I wanted to. Like I looked forward to for the first time in my life, I looked forward to work events where they do something fun together, make candles, or do like taste wine together, or whatever the thing was. It was all remote, and that was always the thing where I always wanted to hang out. And then we actually did do like an on-site where everybody came in. It was like 250 people. And it was so fun. I had so much fun with everybody, and I just thought, man, this is the best team. And then they pulled the rug out from under me and laid off half of us. And then just recently laid off in more than 50% of the company. So it's like, you know, that culture changed real quickly. So, you know, you got to enjoy it while it lasts, I guess. But, you know, and it's funny that I go into a different tech company. It's exactly the opposite. You know, I met a couple of good friends there that we still hang out with. We still meet. We would go for a walk for coffee to go. I really hope that my last bosses from this job listen to this podcast. We would go walk to the nearest coffee shop, which was a few blocks away, because that was our time to just vent about, and mainly me, vent about how incompetent and stupid it is, all of our leaders and the company and the culture, and how much I hated it, and it was ridiculous and we should all leave. And I kept talking everybody into leaving, and then I just did. And they're like, I can't believe you left. And I'm like, really? Because I talked about it all the time. But I mean, you know, it's just, there was a sign in the middle of the conference room of that job. I remember I was sitting in this room, and we were forced to sit in this room, and we were, the VP of sales was in there, and they were talking about a lot of familiar tones and words that I had known from my last job. And I was like, damn it, layoffs are coming. Like, I know it. Like, I can just tell by the pressure they're putting on us right now. That's like way too much and way too high quotas that anybody can meet. And no one was meeting the quotas that they wanted. And so everything was way too high. And I was like, this pressure's coming. I know they're going to lay all of us off. And I remember looking over to the wall, and I saw this sign that said on the wall, I don't know if they meant it as a joke or if they meant it to be a real thing, but it said, the beatings will stop when the morale improves. Mm-hmm. It's just like, that's too fucking perfect. Like, what the hell? Like,
little too on the nose.
Oh, little too on the nose. Like, maybe they meant it as a joke, and that's just like how not self-aware they are. But yeah, I was just like, God, that's terrible. And so, yeah, that's exactly how it felt. It was exactly that culture. And so, it really depends on who you work with. And yeah, I mean, if you love your team and you love the work you do, then being in person would be so much better.
Yeah. And I'm a social 5.
That's true.
And maybe I need to, I've been talking about for a while, maybe doing like a co-working space, which is kind of hard because I'm on so many calls all day. But maybe I could figure out a way to make it work. But just getting, even if it's not the people I'm working with, getting out and being around other human beings.
Yeah. Sunlight comes in the window, like any of it.
Yeah.
It's so different. But also too, just like being away from home.
Yes.
There's something about
getting out of my sweatpants. And
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. We can start to transition, I think, into our next part of this conversation, which is but how we are in our own personal space. You know, it's so easy to shut off the world. It's so easy to be ourselves when we are in our own space. And, you know, I love having my own space. We've talked about having our own space in previous episodes and what that means to us as fives, but also it can be a detriment, which I think we've talked about too. And, you know, in this particular instance, you know, your office has become like the place you work, but also kind of your safe haven away from all of the sensory overload of having 3 kids and a family.
Well, a little bit, yeah. The door basically is non-existent in terms of sound, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean,
Yes.
though. But there's that divide where you feel like this is my space, this is where I can be me, but then that's also like convoluted because of your work, also. So then it becomes kind of a cell. And so, I feel the same way. I have a really hard time being productive. The only thing I can do in this space that we're in right now in my office is music stuff or creative space. If I try to work in this office, I can't get anything done. I don't want to do it. And so I literally every morning lately, I've been going to the coffee shop that's right down the street and read for an hour. And then do all of the things I need to do, admin stuff, before I start going to see accounts. And that's been, I forgot how much I needed it. And like today, this morning, I was standing at the counter on my computer, like putting in orders and calling my boss and like doing all the things. And there was a crowd of people around me. And there was a moment where I actually stopped and like stepped outside myself for a second and was like, how weird is it that I'm comfortable right now and actually feel like I'm a little bit thriving in a space where everyone is in my space. All these strangers talking and being around me, and that's what I wanted. Like that's what made me feel the most productive. And I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't need anybody. But you know, you've been in this coffee shop over here, fellow. And so you know, it's really small, but everybody was on both sides. It was super full, and I loved being in the middle of all that.
Yeah, that's so interesting because now that I'm thinking about like my last big burst of energy came when I took that time off in between the holidays at the end of the year, and Amy and the kids were sick.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was basically going out in the mornings to try to get caught up on some stuff and start writing. And I was working on my book still.
Yep.
But I was going to coffee shops in the mornings, and I would, you know, go out and get, you know, spend a few hours and get a bunch of stuff done, and I would feel like amazing. And then I would come back.
Yeah.
And that energy carried into the rest of my day. And I have not done that in a long time.
Yeah, maybe you should.
Maybe I should.
You're a VP of blah and blah, so why not? Etc. You can do whatever the hell you want. Just go to a coffee shop.
Well, honestly, the thing that broke me out of my, like the big thing that broke me out of my routine was when I started doing this fitness routine. And so then I was trying to figure out how to make exercising work in the mornings. And then I was also trying, you know, like eating very specifically.
Yeah.
And so I had to make my own food. And so then it was like, well, if I'm making my own food and I'm making my own coffee at home, what am I going to go to a coffee shop for? And just in my head, it was really hard to justify getting out. And so I just stopped doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
but now you have a reason to justify it.
Yeah.
It's more than just going to it. And also too, do we think that the reason why we love coffee shops so much is because of our religious background?
Oh, that's a provocative question.
I was thinking about it after it came out of my mouth. I was like, isn't it weird? Because like how much evangelicals love to be in coffee shops, because sometimes I purposely know in my brain, I know the coffee shops I don't go to because of how many Christians are usually in there.
Well, actually, I have a different theory.
Okay.
And it's that it is the lowest effort way to be sociable.
Yeah.
Because we can be around people, but there's no expectation that we interact, and to isolate ourselves is like expected inside of a coffee shop.
You could do that in a library.
Yeah, but like the kind of people that go to a library, it's not the same.
It's like people like us. Oh man,
I can't tell you the last time I went to a library.
Our library downtown is pretty cool.
It is pretty awesome, yeah, but I never go there.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I'm a member. I have a card. I don't go. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about every time there's certain coffee shops. I walk in and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like a church coffee shop and I just can't do it. It's too triggering.
I don't mind that personally.
Yeah, it's a trauma thing for me. But I think that I just walk in and I'm like, should I be handing out tracts? I don't know.
Well, one of the ones that's closest to my house, like, it literally is a church on the weekends, and so like there's a cross up and there's like a stage for it, and I'm like, it doesn't bother me at this point.
Yeah, it's a little different for me, I think.
Yeah,
I can't do it. And even like I'll get up and move if I hear people talking about praying or the Bible near me in a coffee shop. I'm like, it like makes me feel so uncomfortable. It's like I get the same feeling hearing Christians talk about Bibles and prayer and all the like buzzwords of Christianity. The same feeling comes over me that I get when, as somebody with Asperger's, when I put on before we did this, I put on 5 different shirts because I couldn't find the right fabric that felt right on my skin. And I was like, why does nothing feel right? Huh. That's how I feel. It's like suddenly everything feels abrasive.
Oh, interesting.
And like everything, I'm just uncomfortable. I just
sensory overload.
Yeah, it's like, and one, it's obviously triggering things that I'm still working through. And so there's just something about it, and I hate it so much, and so I have to get up and move because then all I can think about is what they're talking about, and then I'm analyzing it, and it's a bad place for me to be, so I just get up and move. But there's a couple of coffee shops. There's the one on the south side right here that I love that coincidentally has the best coffee in town, but also is the most progressive. So if there's Christians in there, they're incognito. And then there's the other coffee shop I go to that's owned by a gay couple, and there's no Christians in there either, so that I know of. And so that's the 2 coffee shops I go to.
Wow, you're so prejudiced.
I know. Yeah, it's just part of my past, I can't do it. I'm still working through it. Maybe that'll be a future episode. But yeah, I don't know. It's just there's something about being trying to find and maybe that is what it is. A coffee shop is a perfect curated space where we could be around people without having to be with people, and then we get the right amount of background noise and sensory.
And other people are there to be productive most of the time.
That's true. Yeah, there's like a productive energy in there. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a space in town that used to exist that is the center of a lot of my trauma. That before that, there was always business owners there. There was people starting businesses there, and there was such an intense, just thickness of a creative vibe going on in the air. You could just feel it. And so and I think about that time kind of fondly in that way, because I wish there was a space like that still. I think that there is a space to some degree that we can talk about.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if we say the name on the episode, right? It doesn't matter.
I don't know. I don't know what you're going to say.
So there's a place in town that's basically, when I say it like this, it's going to sound like we should not like it, but it's basically like it's like a country club for millennials.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
It's called the Common House, which sounds like a church.
Oh,
actually.
And let's be for real, like it's ultra pretentious.
Oh, it's the most ridiculous shit you've ever seen. I mean, expensive furniture. They have 3 bars in the building, a restaurant that's way too expensive. It's actually, it depends on what you eat there. But I went there when in my first tech job. My friend who also worked at that company, he had a membership there, so we would just go and use that co-working space and work out of there. And honestly, it reminded me of that first space that I was talking about. It reminded me of, there was a certain air of everybody's there to do the same thing, which is to do like something productive, whether they're creating. There's also a lot of creatives there, so for whatever reason, I don't know, rich creatives.
There's a new building, like branch of the big co-working center that we have here in Chattanooga. Oh yeah. That opened up just like right down the street from my house.
Really?
And I went and I gave it a tour right before it opened, so I didn't get to see the finished product. And I was going to try it out, and I just never did it. So maybe that's all going to be on my list for next week during my vacation, is just go check out the co-working space and sign up and just give it a trial for a month and see if it's a good place to work.
Yeah, for sure. I'll come.
Okay.
I mean, I love seeing spaces.
Yeah. Okay.
You never know. Maybe I'll come there and work with you.
That sounds great. Actually, we should do more of that. What the fucking hell, man? Like,
now I can.
we could literally just like meet up for a couple hours in the morning and sit at a coffee shop and both of us work and actually get stuff done.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God.
The problem is you're going to have to come to my neighborhood because I don't drive.
That's fair. I mean, I need to get out anyway, and there's nothing over in my neighborhood.
No, there's not.
Unless you want to go to like Taco Bell.
If it's not 2 a.m., I'm not going to Taco Bell. Yeah, no, we could do that. All right. So there you go. We solved it.
All right. We'll no longer be depressed.
I hope that we've gotten somewhere.
I think we've gotten somewhere. I don't know if it's a helpful place, but it's at least somewhere.
I think that we just got to be entertaining sometimes, you know?
Well, a lot of this is us just sort of processing out loud.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think really where we landed with this is like,
there's value in that too, though.
yeah. And also, you know, we've touched on this in different ways, but our environment is way bigger of a factor than I think we give it credit for in terms of our levels of depression or mood or whatever. The people we're around, our sense of purpose, our sense of productivity, our health, all of those things sort of factor into
there's the
formula.
There's the physicality, the mentality, and then the environment.
Yeah.
That's the three things that we have to constantly
there are
thinking
emotions.
about.
We can't just completely leave those out, but yes.
Mentality and emotions go together for me. But
Of course they do.
fair enough. But yeah.
So if you've been feeling down, hopefully we lighten the mood at least with this one.
Yeah.
And just take a look at what is going on in your life, what your environment looks like. I know one of the reasons why I'm on my list for next week when I'm taking time off is to clean my office at home because it's a mess. And every morning I walk in there, I'm just like, ugh. And that's just, I think we underestimate the effect that has on us for the rest of the
file
day.
that under environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my little wraparound desk here, it's a little bit of a mess right now. And, but man, when I clean my desk, I don't even have to do anything else. Just cleaning my desk makes me feel like incredibly accomplished and put together. Like it's like it puts everything mentally in its own place too. It's very strange.
Someone told me once that your physical environment is like your outside environment is a reflection of your inside environment.
Yeah.
And
sounds very self-helpy.
Yeah, it does. But I
it's
kind
true,
of get it. Like, and so maybe like a good start if you want to start cleaning up the inner environment is to just start with the outer environment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a therapeutic experience to just clean your space. And I'm sure all of us as adults and hopefully know this. You've done it at least once. And the feeling you get afterwards to be so accomplished just for doing so little essentially is amazing. But then to just imagine like cleaning an entire space, like your living room or kitchen or whatever, and then it's completely spotless. Everything's in its place. For me, it's like all the counters are cleaned off. Yes. Everything is simplified.
All the dishes are clean.
Yeah, there's nothing on the surface, like counter surfaces, and everything's like more minimalist, right? Like there's nothing on there.
I dream of a minimalist.
Have like low lighting, some candles lit, and then you sit down to read a book in that clean space.
I'm a bit turned on.
Right? It's arousing for a 5. I am sorry, not sorry for doing this to you as a listener. Man, season 4, we're off the rails. We're doing our own thing. I hope you're along for the ride. But yeah, this is good. So this was low 5s. We're going to call this one low 5s, which is funny. But your vacation's next week. Maybe we'll do high 5s.
Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out. The episodes, it's been long.
It is the most requested episode that we've had.
We've talked a lot about drugs.
Yeah, that's true.
And what it's like for a 5 to be a little out of control. So we'll see. Yeah. I don't know if we've ever led into another episode, but that's kind of like part 2 of this episode.
Okay. Stay tuned next week.
Stay tuned. See you next time.
All right. Take care. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hey, it's Josiah, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you're the type of person who likes helping others, would you do us a favor and share it with other people like you? If you found value in this conversation, they will too. I also want to give a special thanks to our community members who shared their voice with us in this episode. If anything in this conversation has resonated with you, or if you have any further thoughts or questions, I want to invite you to join our community of other people like you and continue the conversation at Enneagram5.com.